Hi, everyone. Just going to wait a few moments for us to get started as people start joining. Hello, hello. Welcome. Please feel free to let me know where you're joining us from right here in the chat as we prepare to get started shortly. Hi, Dakota. Nice to see you. We have an East Coaster, Boston. All right. I am in Oregon, so West Coast time for me. Philadelphia. How's the weather over there? It's been pretty cold here, which is kind of unusual, actually. Usually we have a lot more rain this time of year. Yeah, rainy for you guys. Oh. All right. Also, if you're joining us now, please note that there is a polling question set up for you if you wouldn't mind answering, just to kind of get a sense of what folks find challenging about this season. Pressure to be social and festive. Yep. Lots of pressure and lots of bombardment with messages about, how things should be and how we should spend our time. All right. Well, with that, I'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Health Huddle on navigating loneliness during the holidays. If whether you're here because this time of year feels particularly challenging, or you're looking for ways to support someone you care about, I am really, really glad that you joined us today. My name is Sam Domingo. I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice based here in Oregon. And I also have the honor of serving as an expert in Twill Care's well-being community. So for all of you who are here, welcome. Thank you for spending time with me today and each other. If you're new to us and you aren't familiar with Twill Care, we are an app and website where you can connect with others, share experiences, and get insights from experts like me. So after this session, I highly encourage you to join our supportive community if you haven't done that already. And if I'm not able to answer any of your questions during this event, I will be sure to answer them in the community. You can request for one of the experts as well to answer any questions you may have about all things well-being. So I'm looking through our polling questions here. It looks like still 100% of you are struggling with the pressure to be social or festive. All right. And I should add that before we get started with today's content, I want to send a reminder that this event is meant to be a helpful resource. It's not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All right. So we know, right, that the holidays can be wonderful. But for many people, they can also bring feelings of loneliness or sadness. So if that's how you're feeling, please know that you're not alone. That's what we're here to talk about today. In today's session, we're going to talk about why loneliness during the holidays is so common, and how it can affect us. We're also going to talk about practical ways to cope and ways to build a support system. And then lastly, we will talk about redefining the holidays in a way that feels meaningful to you. Okay, so let's get into it. We also have another polling question. Write in the chat if you would like to participate. Please share with us what are some of the strategies that you utilize to cope with loneliness during the holidays. So far, it looks like practicing self-care. Love to see it. So why can this season be so challenging for so many of us? It can also feel unsettling, right, to experience loneliness during a season where the expectation is to feel joy and connection and to celebrate. But what do I mean when I say loneliness? Loneliness is not limited to being alone. Rather, it can be a feeling of emotional disconnection from others despite wanting that connection. Or perhaps feeling overwhelmed or challenged by the pressures of the season, for being any one way. You can be alone or experience solitude without feeling lonely. And the opposite is also true, that you can be surrounded by people and still feel disconnected. So, how common is it to feel lonely during the holiday season? There was a survey done by the AARP a few years ago in 2017 that found that 31% of responders, out of about 1,000 people, said that they felt lonely during past holiday seasons. And then 4 in 10, or about 41% of respondents, said that they also worried about a friend or family member feeling lonely during the holidays. There was another survey that I wanted to highlight. This was done quite a while ago, back in 2014, and it was done by the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI, and which they found that 66% of respondents reported feeling lonely at the holidays, while 64% of people with mental illness say that the holidays made their condition worse. So my educated guess is that those numbers have probably stayed relatively stable and perhaps maybe increased, when we take into account factors like the pandemic, global events, the role of technology. All of these things can contribute to feelings of loneliness. So as you can see, just from, and I promise those are the only stats I'll be sharing, loneliness during the holidays is way more common than people think. So let's talk about why. What plays into this? For many of us, as I kind of alluded to at the beginning, the holidays can come with societal and cultural expectations of joy, connection, celebration, right? We see it all the time in social media, showing us perfect family dinners and beautiful gatherings and perfectly wrapped gifts and smiling faces. But we know that that doesn't always match up with reality, right? Some of you might be physically distant from loved ones because of work or school or any other life circumstances. Others may be grieving the loss of someone you love or navigating strained relationships, which the holidays can kind of highlight and remind us of those kinds of things. And for some, this season, again, might highlight feelings of being left out or not having a community to celebrate with. And lastly, one factor I wanted to mention as well is that of financial stress, right? Especially in our culture in the United States, there is a significant expectation to spend more on gift giving, for example, which adds a lot of stress. So what I want you to take away from this huddle is that these feelings are valid. And as you can see, and as you've heard, they're shared by so many other people, even if it doesn't feel that way. The thing is, when we experience loneliness, it doesn't just stay in our heads. It can also impact us physically, and it can impact what we do. It can also lead to increased feelings of sadness, anxiety. You may have trouble sleeping, or you may be feeling more unmotivated. So it kind of keeps you in a state of not engagement with your life. The good news is that just like with any other feeling, these feelings are not permanent. And while it's important to allow yourself to feel them, we don't have to get stuck in them. So, now that we've talked about why loneliness is so common around this season, let's focus on identifying maybe some tools and practices that can help support your well being this time of year. First and foremost, it is worth repeating that it is so important to acknowledge and validate your emotions. It's okay to feel lonely. And in many ways, experiencing negative emotions can feel like swimming upstream, especially in a society that tends to value seeking only the good feelings, right? Only happiness, only joy. It can almost feel abnormal, or like there's something wrong with you if you feel anything else. So rather than pushing those feelings aside, perhaps take a moment, right, and name them. Use feeling words. So, what feeling word resonates with me at this moment? Am I feeling lonely, sad, alienated, lost? Once you've identified that word, maybe add some context. You might say to yourself, I'm feeling lonely because I miss my family, right? Or I'm sad because my holidays don't look the way I hoped. I work with a lot of people who live with disability and chronic illness, and this season can be particularly challenging because there can be a big difference between expectations and what can be actually accessible, right? So that can lead to these feelings. So naming your feelings can help take away some of their power. And what we know about emotions is that part of their job is to remind us of what's truly important and meaningful to us. They're little messengers that tell you, hey, this is important, pay attention here. So, sadness, for example, can indicate a desire for connection or closeness with other people. And that's really important information that allows us to find a path forward. Um, so, in my work, and let's be honest here, in my personal life, I'm a big proponent of feeling your feelings and sitting with them. And you may have heard that phrase being used before, sitting with your feelings, right? But what does it really mean? Like, how do you do that? It really means to allow yourself to experience whatever you may be feeling, allowing yourself to cry, to talk to a friend, to a therapist, to run, to dance, to watch a sad movie, or even listen to music that matches your mood without words. So it can look very differently for anyone, and it can vary moment to moment. There is no right way of sitting with your emotions as long as you allow them to be there, to be present, and to tend to them in a compassionate way, the way that you would a child or a friend that you love. So, sitting with your feelings allows you to move through them. Um, the next point I want to make that's tied into this idea is to notice if there are any recurring, or what I like to call sticky thoughts, that might be holding you back from processing the emotion, right? Such as, I should be happy, right? Or why does everyone else get to celebrate but me? And so while we can't stop the thoughts from arising, right, they're going to show up when they show up. We can't really prevent that. What we can do is take a step back, right, and look at our thoughts with curiosity and wonder almost. And that prevents us from getting stuck in a loop with these thoughts. So, a good reminder that thoughts are not facts, right? One of my favorite practices is to once I identify the sticky thought, like I should be happy, is to say the thought out loud in a silly voice. For example, I should be happy, right? That sort of takes the sting out of the thought, and not in an invalidating way, but it just creates some separation between you and that thought. So notice what that happens when you do that, or notice what happens when you say out loud, I am having the thought that. I am having the thought that I should be happy. That has a different feel, at least for me, than simply I should be happy. Right? So see if you, I invite you to play with these practices and notice what happens. So building on these strategies of allowing your emotions, allowing your thoughts to be there. If you know me and you have seen any of my huddles or you're part of our well-being community, I know you've heard this one before from me, but it's worth mentioning. Considering incorporating mindfulness into your day. So I know that the idea of mindfulness practice can feel for some people maybe a little intimidating or inaccessible or complicated or confusing. I hear from my clients and my own practice saying, I don't know if I'm doing this right. This isn't working. So I want to take a moment to help demystify the concept of mindfulness. So at its simplest form, mindfulness helps us stay grounded in the present moment. You do not have to do anything differently. You do not have to expect a certain outcome. And you also don't have to practice sitting meditation to practice mindfulness. So take a moment right now, as you're watching this live, or perhaps later when you watch the recording, take a moment and notice the feeling of your clothes on your skin. Maybe notice your feet contacting the floor if you are standing or sitting. Ask yourself, what do you notice? For me, I am noticing that I'm having the thought that, I hope I'm not running out of time, that I'm doing well on that. I'm also feeling very warm and cozy with my sweater. And I also notice that there's an ache around my neck. And I'm not judging this experience. I'm just naming it. It is what it is, right? At this moment, this is my experience, and I don't have to change it into anything else. What a relief, right? So if you join me in that brief mindful check, guess what? You just practice mindfulness. So the more that you cultivate this, the more flexible and resilient you become over time, which allows us to weather the storm of challenging emotions like loneliness. So something else, as we are talking about this, that I would like to comment on is when it comes to feelings of loneliness around this time of year, our natural tendency can be to focus on what we lack or what we don't have, right? So whether that is connection or a community or joy, wealth, what have you, focusing on what we don't have keeps us from noticing the things that we do have, which is, you can imagine, adds to our pain and can prolong our suffering. So a simple gratitude practice can shift our focus from a lack of to, wow, I get to have this, right? Being thankful can help shift your focus to what's going well, which again brings you back into the present moment and further away from the shoulds and coulds. Just taking a moment here to pause, look at our survey answers. Looks like lots of our friends here are using talking to friends and family as a strategy for coping, engaging in self-care. And a lot of us, I'm kind of part of that group too. I tend to withdraw and keep to myself when I'm feeling this way. So thank you for all who participated. And a reminder that if you're joining us now, please know that this session is being recorded and will be available to watch on our channel later. All right, so we've talked about feeling our feelings, not getting stuck in our thoughts, right? We've talked about gratitude. Next, let's talk about the process of reconnecting or reflecting on your personal values. You may be wondering, what do you mean? What do personal values have to do with coping with loneliness? In my work, that I do with clients, values act as guiding principles, right? Or core beliefs that give a person's life meaning and direction. So they act sort of like a compass. They kind of point you in the direction that you want to go, that will make your life feel full, right? Values allow us to make choices that align with what truly matters to us. So, for example, if you value, for example, community, but you live far away from family or friends, could you identify ways to connect with that value of yours by exploring activities that could help you build community right where you live? Right? So that's just one example. So this could also be an opportunity to reflect on what's really important in your life at this point in time and use that as a guide to take action toward that life that you want to live. All right. And all of these are pretty connected. The next one is to our next strategy is to practice engaging in acts of kindness. And that was one of our options here on our polling question, volunteering, helping others. This can be a way to refocus your attention outwards. So it might seem counterintuitive when you're feeling lonely, but helping others can bring a sense of connection and purpose. Maybe you bake cookies for a neighbor, or you donate to a local organization, or you help organize mutual aid for someone. Or you may simply check in on someone you know who may be feeling lonely too. And that can also provide an avenue for building a support system, right? That actually supports you at this point in your life. As I mentioned, it can be so tempting, especially in the winter season, right? To retreat into yourself when you're feeling lonely. But part of moving through this emotion involves getting creative when it comes to creating or tapping into a support system. And support systems don't always have to be people. They can be pets, they can be activities, they can be resources that are accessible to you. So my encouragement here is to think outside the box and get creative, right? Even if your circle or your system feels small, there are ways to connect. So you can do the more intuitive thing and reach out to friends or family or coworkers and schedule time together, even if it's virtual. You can also look at what events are happening in your community. Again, get involved with volunteering can be another way of meeting people who have similar values to you. Connecting with our community. I know in our well-being community, we are very supportive, and I love seeing members support each other every day. So that is also a way to foster that connection. It doesn't have to be a physical presence, right? So we've talked about all of these strategies, right, to help kind of navigate the challenges of loneliness around this season. So now I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about redefining the holidays for yourself. So the truth is that the holidays don't have to look a certain way, despite what your mind might be telling you should be happening. You have permission to break free from any expectations that other people may have, or you may have for yourself, or society has for you. So maybe your holiday isn't about big, fancy, perfect gatherings or perfect meals. It could also be about resting, reflecting, connecting with your creative side. Again, these are just ideas. The idea is to focus on what matters to you, like I was just talking to a client this morning. What is the meat in your sandwich? And then you can add toppings. But what is the thing that you need to kind of help you feel full and connected? So think about creating your own traditions. For example, you might take a little hike by yourself if the weather permits, depending on where you live, or a nice walk. And you can use that time to reflect on the past year, right? And think about what do I want to add more of in my life over the next few months. If you're more crafty, you can create a vision board for the year ahead. You maybe invite some friends or people that you know but want to get to know more over an informal dinner or potluck. Or you may try something completely new, right? Like exploring your hometown right where you are, or trying a new hobby. So the key with all of these practices and strategies is to have a foundation of self-compassion. So letting go of any guilt or pressure to make your holidays look perfect. Being kind to yourself as you experience these tough emotions. It is okay to feel them, right? So giving yourself grace so that you can move through with your personal values in mind. And remember that this season is just a season, right? Holidays are not a deadline for happiness or perfection. You can find joy in small, unexpected moments, and that can be just as meaningful as any tradition. So I know I've talked your ear out for the last 20 something minutes or so. I would love to hear from you. What are some of the challenges, even if they haven't been listed here in the polling questions, that you've noticed show up in around this time of year? Or maybe share with us some of your tips and strategies. I am always open to learning from people and love to hear additional ideas that maybe I didn't think of or didn't get to talk about. And while I wait for your comments and thoughts to pop in, I'd just like to do a little quick recap. It helps my brain integrate all of the information. So I hope it helps you as well. Number one, loneliness during the holidays is common and it's valid. Okay, let's step away from the shame and allow our feelings to be here. Coping strategies that we talked about include validating your own feelings, feeling your feelings, paying attention to the ways your mind can keep you stuck, practicing mindfulness by simply being here right now, acknowledging the gifts that you have in your life, no matter how small they are or how small they may seem, focusing on what truly matters to you, again, what fills your cup, and connecting with others in a way that is accessible to you, are all strategies and practices that can help support you throughout the season and beyond. And lastly, reminder that you have the power and the ability and the autonomy to redefine the holidays in a way that feels accessible to you. So feel free to get creative and step out of the shoulds and coulds and really focus on that meat. All right. I'm going to wait a few moments to see if any questions pop up. For those of you who've joined, I am so glad that you were here. And I look forward to connecting with everyone in our community. My hope is that after today, you feel a little less alone and maybe a little more empowered to navigate this season in a way that works for you. And lastly, don't forget to visit Twill Care for more information, connect with others, and ask me and our other lovely experts on all things well-being. Thank you so much. Oh, glad to hear it, Dakota. Yes. Yeah, there can be a lot of pressure, right? To stay busy and do all of the things. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I will see everyone very soon. Thank you for having me.